One of the latest books that I've read are Silos, Politics, and Turf Wars, written by one of my favorite authors in terms of leadership development, Patrick Lencioni. I'll talk about that one next. Silos, Politics, and Turf Wars by Patrick Lencioni. Now, if you've worked in many office environments, especially at large businesses, corporations, universities, you have an understanding of what it can be like to work in an environment where there are silos, people working in small, independent little organizations within the company. This is usually not by design. It's usually something that's indirectly done because of challenges that leadership is having in terms of bringing people together. And then, of course, you have the office politics that sometimes people like to try to ignore and pretend as if it isn't there, as if it's not actually happening. And then, of course, there are turf wars. And turf wars oftentimes are exacerbated by office politics and silos. As people feel like other people are getting on their turf, you get into this ego and territory thing, and you have to try to determine what is ego and territory versus what is like legit differences of opinion that really need to have people sit down and discuss and work out. And so reading this book by Patrick Lencioni, I really enjoyed it because the fable that they use to describe the situation, to set the table for the direction that you get at the end of the book, was really very helpful because it gives you a way an outsider can come in and look and see how things are working in your organization. And sometimes the outsider can see things that you can't see because you being on the inside, you have a certain level of bias one way or the other, positively or negatively. You see things a certain way, and your judgment can oftentimes be clouded, making it difficult for you to look at it in any kind of objective way. And so sometimes a person can come in from the outside, but you got to be careful when you bring in someone from the outside, because sometimes consultants can come in from the outside, and if they're not coming in with an objective mindset and a free hand, they can sometimes be influenced by the upper level management that's paying them to come in. And if the upper level management is paying them and looking for a certain outcome, that can sometimes poison the perspective of the consultant that's coming in to try to help you with those silos, politics, and turf wars. And so it's important to keep an open mindset and to understand what's going on within your organization, to look at it with an honest approach, to look at it with open eyes, and to look at it with the slate wiped clean. And that's difficult. It's easier said than done. And I really enjoyed the book because it was really, there's a deeper plot that goes on in the fable that helps the main character better understand how he has been approaching things. And he is in turn able to help the organizations that he's working with see better how they're approaching things and to help them work through their own issues. And sometimes what happens is that instead of giving people the answer to the problem, sometimes what you have to help them do is to discover it and see it, and you help them draw the picture themselves. And if they can see for themselves what the problem is, and you can help them see what the potential solutions are, many times, hopefully if you've done it right, they'll find the proper, appropriate solution for them. And more importantly, they'll do it on their own. And if they can do it on their own, rather than have you give them the answer, then that's going to be much better for them, because then they will have actually learned the lesson instead of having you tell them the lesson and having them just accept the lesson, mainly because maybe they just want you to leave and they want to get back to their silo, or they just know that the boss wants this, it's preordained, and they just go along with the program. They go along to get along. And so it's important to help people see the issues that they have and help them discover it themselves. And that's one of the things when people come to you for advice sometimes, you want to really help them see the problem themselves and get to the solution themselves. Even if you know in the back of your head what the solution is, if you can help them better understand the problem on their own by kind of walking them through it, and then in turn, you hope that they will walk not only through the problem to understand the problem better, but they'll actually find the solution through their discovery of what the actual problem is. And so that's one of the things that happens in that book. And silos are a big problem in a lot of organizations. Turf wars are a big problem in a lot of organizations, and politics are a lot of problem within many organizations. And so highly recommended book. I really enjoyed it. I'm one of those people that when I read a book, I make a lot of highlights with the highlighter, and I also tab the book quite a bit to have quick reference points that I can go back and look at whenever I need to get a refresher on something that I read, or to really reinforce a point that I thought was really significant within the book. I do it with nonfiction books like these Patrick Lencioni books that I've been reading, or the John C. Maxwell books that I've read, but I also do it with many of my fiction books as well when there are key points that I want to reference back to at some point, whether I get to a few chapters later or I get toward the end of the book. Those are things that I want to be able to re-look at, to reference, to make sure that I've picked up that knowledge from the book, or I've found that important point that I should take with me after I'm done reading that book. So highly recommended. Patrick Lencioni, Silos, Politics and Turf Wars. Highly recommended for you to read, and it could be important if you're a CEO, if you're a director, a president, or a vice president. Could be a very important book, not only for you to read and to understand and comprehend, but also for people of your staff to read, understand, and comprehend.